The day humanity received its first starship was supposed to be a day of celebration. For 40 years, Earth had asked to join the Galactic Consortium. For 40 years, the aliens had said no. Humans were too young, too violent, too primitive. But finally, after decades of peaceful contact and careful diplomacy, the consortium had agreed. Humanity was in. Jake Harris stood in the observation deck of the consortium station, watching through the massive window as a ship slowly came into view. He was a tall man with tired eyes and rough hands. He had spent 20 years in the Earth Navy, fixing broken vessels and keeping old ships running long past their expected lifetimes. Now he had been chosen to command humanity's first interstellar vessel. He had expected something impressive. The consortium had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had vessels with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop a nuclear blast. Surely they would give humanity something worthy of this historic moment. What he saw instead made his stomach drop. The ship that emerged from behind the station was a wreck. It was shaped like a fat cylinder, covered in patches of rust-colored corrosion. Entire sections of the hull were darker than others, showing where repairs had been made with cheaper materials. One of the engine pods hung at an angle, clearly damaged. Scorch marks decorated the side like ugly tattoos. "That cannot be it," Jake said quietly. Beside him, Ambassador Vorik of the Thessan Empire made a sound that might have been a laugh. Vorik was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His people were one of the founding species of the consortium, and they had never hidden their belief that humans did not belong among the stars. "That is indeed your vessel, Commander Harris," Vorik said. His translator gave his voice a smooth, pleasant tone, but Jake could hear the mockery underneath. "The ship is called the Driftwood. It served as a cargo hauler for 300 years before being retired. We felt it was appropriate for humanity's first steps into the galaxy." Jake said nothing. He just stared at the ship. "The Driftwood has no weapons," Vorik continued, clearly enjoying himself. "Its shields are 40 years out of date. The navigation system uses charts that have not been updated in a decade. And I believe there are some small cracks in the hull, though I am told they are not immediately dangerous." "How generous," Jake said flatly. "We thought so." Vorik's thin lips curved into a smile. "Of course. If the vessel proves too challenging for your people, the consortium would be happy to discuss alternatives. Perhaps a smaller craft would be more suitable, something closer to what your species is accustomed to." Jake finally turned to look at the alien. Vorik was at least a foot taller than him, and his 4 arms were crossed in a gesture of absolute confidence. Everything about him radiated superiority. "We will take the ship," Jake said. Vorik blinked. "I am sorry? The Driftwood. We accept it. Thank you for the gift." The ambassador's smile faltered for just a moment. "Commander, I feel I should be clear. This vessel is essentially worthless. We were planning to dismantle it for scrap before your species joined. It would cost more to repair than to simply build a new ship." "I understand. Then why would you accept it?" Jake looked back at the battered old ship floating in space. It was ugly. It was broken. It was everything the aliens thought about humanity given physical form. They expected humans to complain. They expected them to beg for something better. They expected weakness. Jake had never been good at giving people what they expected. "Because it is ours," he said simply, "and we will make it work." 3 days later, Jake stood in the cargo bay of the Driftwood with his crew. The bay was huge and mostly empty. With stained floors and flickering lights, the air smelled like old metal and something chemical that no one could identify. His crew was small. The consortium had only approved 20 humans to serve on the vessel. Jake had chosen each of them personally. Lieutenant Katie Moore stood closest to him. She was young, barely 30, but she was the best propulsion engineer Earth had ever produced. She had a sharp mind and sharper tongue, and she was already making notes on a tablet, her eyes scanning the walls and ceiling. Chief Engineer Sam Cortez was examining a panel he had pulled from the wall. Sam was older, with gray in his hair and grease permanently stained into his fingers. He had kept submarines running in the deep ocean for 15 years. He claimed he could fix anything, and Jake had never seen him proven wrong. Dr. Lisa Grant stood apart from the others, studying a portable scanner. She was the ship's medical officer, and also an expert in alien biology. She was calm and precise, the kind of person who never panicked no matter what was happening. "Initial assessment," Jake said. "How bad is it?" Katie looked up from her tablet. "The propulsion system is a joke. Single-engine design. Which means if it fails, we drift until we die. Power distribution is inefficient. I am seeing at least 30 points where energy is being wasted." Sam grunted from his place by the wall. "Wiring is a mess. Looks like they repaired it a dozen times and never actually fixed anything, just layered new stuff on top of old stuff." He pulled out a bundle of cables that looked like multicolored spaghetti. "This is going to take months to sort out. The hull is worse than they told us," Lisa added. "I am reading microfractures throughout the structure. Nothing that will kill us today, but this ship will not survive any serious stress." "Weapons?" Jake asked. "None," Katie said. "Not even a point defense system. If anyone shoots at us, we die." "Shields?" "Present, but outdated. They might stop a small asteroid." "Maybe," Jake nodded slowly. He had expected all of this. The consortium had given them a death trap and called it a gift. Every species in the galaxy was waiting for humanity to fail. He looked around at his crew. They were tired. They were overwhelmed. But not one of them had suggested giving up. "All right," Jake said. "Here is how I see it. They gave us this ship because they think we cannot do anything with it. They think we will come crawling back, begging for help. They think humans are weak." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "I think they are wrong. I think this ship is exactly what we needed. Not because it is good, but because it will show them who we really are." He looked at each crew member in turn. "We are going to tear this ship apart. We are going to rebuild it from the inside out. And when we are done, the driftwood will be the most dangerous vessel in the consortium." Sam laughed. "You are insane, Commander." "Probably," Jake admitted. "But I am also right. So let us get to work." The crew dispersed throughout the ship, already talking about plans and possibilities. Jake stayed behind for a moment. Alone in the empty cargo bay, he placed his hand on the cold metal wall. "They think you are garbage," he said quietly. "But we are going to prove them wrong. Together." The ship did not answer. But somewhere deep in its systems, a light flickered on that had not worked in years. 18 months passed like a fever dream of sparks, sweat, and sleepless nights. The consortium had given humanity a deadline. 1 year to prove the driftwood was spaceworthy. If the ship could not pass inspection, it would be taken back and scrapped. Ambassador Vorik had smiled when he delivered this news, certain that humans would never meet the challenge. He did not understand what humans could do when someone told them something was impossible. Sam Cortez spent the first 3 months living inside the walls of the ship. He tore out every cable, every wire, every circuit board. He mapped the entire electrical system by hand, crawling through spaces so tight he could barely breathe. What he found made him angry. The aliens built for efficiency. Everything was designed to use the minimum amount of material and energy. There were no backup systems, no redundancies. If one part failed, the whole system failed. It was elegant in a way, but it was also stupid. "They build like they have never had anything go wrong," Sam told Jake one evening, covered in grease and exhaustion. "One bad wire, and this whole ship goes dark. So fix it," Jake said. Sam grinned. Already started. He rebuilt the entire electrical grid using human principles. Every critical system now had 3 backups. Power could be rerouted through a dozen different paths. He installed manual overrides for everything, because Sam believed that no computer should ever have complete control over a ship. When he was done, the driftwood could lose half its systems and still function. The aliens had never built anything like it. Katie Moore attacked the engines with the same intensity. The original design used a single massive thruster. It was powerful but fragile. If it failed, the ship became a floating coffin. Katie did not like that. She spent weeks studying the thruster, learning how it worked, understanding its strengths and weaknesses. Then she ripped it out and replaced it with 6 smaller engines arranged in a ring around the ship's stern. 6 engines means 6 points of failure, Lisa pointed out during one of their planning meetings. 6 engines means 5 backups, Katie corrected. We can lose 5 of them and still move. Try doing that with their single-engine design. But she did not stop there. Katie discovered that the plasma exhaust from the engines could be directed and controlled. With some creative engineering, she turned the engine system into a crude but effective weapon. The driftwood could not fire missiles or energy beams, but it could spray superheated plasma at anything that got too close. It is not pretty, she admitted, but it will burn through most ship hulls like paper. The real breakthrough came from Lisa Grant. She had been studying the hull material, trying to understand why it was cracking. What she found surprised her. The alien metal was actually quite strong, but it had been manufactured incorrectly. Tiny flaws in the original construction had grown into larger cracks over centuries. We cannot replace the hull, Lisa told the crew. It would take years and cost more than Earth's entire space budget. But we might be able to reinforce it. She had been reading about deep-sea construction on Earth. Human submarines operated under crushing pressure that would destroy most structures. They survived because of a technique called carbon weave reinforcement, where strong fibers were layered over weak points to distribute stress across a larger area. Lisa adapted this technique for the driftwood. She treated the microfractures not as problems to be fixed, but as anchor points for a new skeletal structure. Carbon fiber mesh was woven through the cracks, binding them together and spreading any impact across the entire hull. When she was done, the ship was 3 times stronger than it had been when it was new. The consortium inspectors could not believe it. This is not possible, one of them said, studying the hull readings. This vessel should have fallen apart years ago. Instead, it is more durable than our frontline warships. Humans are good at fixing things, Jake said simply, but the crew was not done yet. Jake had called in reinforcements from Earth. Nate Cooper arrived on a transport ship 6 months into the project. He was an old friend of Jake's, a weapons designer, who had spent his career building things that the military told him could not be built. He was short and loud and brilliant. You want weapons on a ship with no weapon mounts, Nate said when Jake explained the situation. No power allocation for weapons, no targeting systems, no ammunition storage. That is correct. Nate laughed. I love it. Give me a month. He took 2 months, but what he built was worth the wait. Using salvaged mining equipment from the cargo hold, Nate constructed a railgun. It was ugly, bolted onto the ship's hull with whatever brackets he could find. It had no computer targeting, requiring manual aim. It could only fire once every 30 seconds because of the power requirements, but it could punch a hole through 6 inches of military-grade armor. The aliens use energy shields, Nate explained. They are great against energy weapons. But a solid chunk of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed? Their shields are not designed for that. This thing will go through them like they are not even there. The final addition came from Amy Chen. She was a civilian, an artificial intelligence programmer who had been working on predictive systems for Earth's defense network. Jake had recruited her personally, promising her a chance to test her theories in real combat conditions. Amy spent months studying how alien ships fought. She watched thousands of hours of combat footage. She analyzed attack patterns, defensive maneuvers, weapon timing, and then she built something new. I call it the Guardian System, she told the crew. It watches everything around the ship. It learns how enemies attack, and it predicts what they will do next. She demonstrated by having Katie simulate an attack run on the ship. Before Katie could even fire her simulated weapons, the Guardian system had already adjusted the shields and moved the ship out of the line of fire. It is not perfect, Amy admitted. It needs time to learn each new enemy. But against anything it has seen before, this ship will be almost impossible to hit. The consortium inspection came at the end of the 18th month. Ambassador Vorik led the team personally, still expecting to find a broken wreck held together with hope and desperation. What he found instead made him go very quiet. The driftwood had been transformed. The hull gleamed with reinforced plating. The engines hummed with smooth, reliable power. Systems that had been failing for decades now worked better than new. And there were weapons where no weapons should be. "This is unexpected," Vorik finally said. "We had some time to make improvements," Jake said. "Improvements." Vorik looked around the bridge, his 4 arms hanging limply at his sides. "Commander Harris, this vessel was meant to be a lesson. A demonstration of the gap between your species and ours. And what lesson have you learned, Ambassador?" Vorik did not answer. He simply turned and walked off the ship, his inspection team following in confused silence. The Driftwood passed its spaceworthiness evaluation with the highest scores ever recorded for a vessel of its class. The crew celebrated that night, drinking and laughing in the cargo bay that had once seemed so hopeless. Jake stood apart, looking out a viewport at the stars. "They still do not understand," he said quietly to Katie, who had joined him. "They think this was luck, or desperation. They do not realize this is just what humans do." "Give them time," Katie said. "They will learn." Jake nodded. "Yes. They will." Somewhere out in the darkness, enemies were waiting. And soon, they would learn exactly what humanity was capable of. The Driftwood had been on patrol for 3 weeks when the raiders found them. It was supposed to be a simple assignment. The consortium had given humanity's ship the most boring route possible. A stretch of empty space between 2 minor colonies. Nothing ever happened there. Nothing ever would happen there. That was the point. Jake understood. They wanted humans safely out of the way, doing useless work where they could not cause trouble. He accepted the assignment without complaint. His crew needed time to learn how the ship handled in real space, away from stations and simulations. Even a boring patrol had value. What they did not expect was the Vectari. "Commander, I am picking up 3 ships on long-range sensors." Katie's voice was calm but tight. "They just dropped out of hyperspace about 200,000 kilometers away." Jake moved to the main display. 3 red dots had appeared at the edge of the screen, moving fast toward the Driftwood's position. Identification: Vectari Raider class. Light attack ships. Each one is about half our size, but they are faster and better armed. Jake felt his jaw tighten. The Vectari were pirates. They preyed on trade ships along the borders of consortium space, hitting fast and disappearing before patrols could respond. They were brutal and efficient, and they had never been stopped by anything less than a full military response. "They are hailing us," Amy said from her station. "Put them through." The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was vaguely reptilian, with scaled skin and narrow yellow eyes. A long scar ran down one side of its face, and when it smiled, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. "Human vessel," the Vectari said. "I am Captain Reth of the Crimson Fang. You are carrying valuable cargo through our territory. Surrender your ship, and we will let your crew live. Resist, and we will tear you apart." Jake looked at the alien for a long moment. He thought about the months of work, the sleepless nights, the impossible problems his crew had solved. All of it leading to this moment. "My name is Commander Jake Harris of the Earth vessel Driftwood," he said. "And I have a counteroffer. Leave now and we will let you live. Stay, and you will regret it." Captain Reth laughed. The sound was harsh and ugly. "Human, do you know what ship you are flying? That wreck could not fight off a cargo drone. You have no weapons, no shields worth mentioning. You are prey." "You are wrong about all of those things," Jake said. "But I understand if you need proof." He cut the transmission. "Battle stations," he said quietly. "Let us show them what we can do." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Katie brought the engines to full power, and the ship hummed with energy. Sam monitored the power grid, ready to reroute at a moment's notice. Amy activated the Guardian system, and the display lit up with predictive data. Nate climbed into the manual control seat for the railgun, cracking his knuckles. Lisa stood ready in the medical bay, hoping she would not be needed. The 3 Vectari ships spread into an attack formation and accelerated. They were fast, Jake had to admit, much faster than the Driftwood. But speed was not everything. "They are in weapons range," Katie announced. "They are charging their main guns." Jake watched the display. The Guardian system was already calculating, predicting, preparing. "Hold course," he said. "Let them fire first." The Vectari did not hesitate. All three ships opened fire at once, beams of blue energy lancing through space toward the driftwood. It was enough firepower to cripple a consortium cruiser. The beams hit nothing but empty space. The Guardian system had moved the ship a fraction of a second before the shots arrived. To the Vectari, it must have looked like magic. The driftwood simply was not where it was supposed to be. "They are reacquiring targets," Amy reported. "Guardian is tracking their weapon movements. I know where they will shoot before they do. Katie, bring us around. Close the distance." "Yes, Commander." The driftwood swung toward the raiders, engines flaring. The Vectari fired again, and again the ship dodged. They were getting frustrated now, Jake could tell. Their shots were coming faster, less coordinated. "Nate, do you have a shot? Give me 10 more seconds." The lead raider was directly ahead now, close enough that Jake could see details of its hull. It was sleek and deadly looking, designed for exactly this kind of attack. Its weapons charged for another volley. "Guardian is showing an 87% chance of a portside attack," Amy said. "Shields to port," Jake ordered. The Vectari fired. This time the beams connected, slamming into the driftwood's reinforced shields. The ship shuddered but held. "Shield integrity at 92%, Sam reported. "That tickled." "My turn," Nate said. Firing. The railgun unleashed a chunk of metal at incredible velocity. It crossed the gap between the ships in less than a second. The Vectari raiders' energy shields flickered and failed. Designed for energy weapons, not physical projectiles. The metal slug punched through the hull like it was made of paper, exiting out the other side in a spray of debris. The raiders' engines died. It began to drift, venting atmosphere from the wound in its side. "One down," Nate said, reloading. The other two raiders broke formation, suddenly uncertain. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they had found something else entirely. "They are trying to flank us," Katie said. "Sam, can you give me everything we have to the engines?" "Already on it." The driftwood surged forward, faster than any ship of its size should move. Katie's 6-engine design allowed for maneuvers that made the aliens' heads spin. The ship rolled, twisted, and came up behind the second raider before its pilot could react. "Katie, show them the exhaust trick." Katie smiled grimly and redirected the engine output. Superheated plasma sprayed across the raider's hull, melting through armor and systems. The ship tried to turn away, but it was too late. Its weapons went dead, its engines failed. It tumbled through space, burning. 2 down. The third raider was running now, engines at maximum, fleeing toward the edge of the system. Captain Reth was screaming over the open channel, cursing humans and promising revenge. "Should we pursue?" Katie asked. Jake considered. They could catch the raider. They could finish this. "No," he said finally. "Let him go." "Commander? I want him to tell everyone what happened here. I want the whole galaxy to know." The crew watched as the last raider vanished into hyperspace. The battle had lasted less than 5 minutes. 2 ships destroyed. 1 fled. The driftwood had taken a single hit that had done minimal damage. Jake opened a channel to Consortium Command. "This is Commander Harris of the Earth vessel Driftwood reporting. We encountered 3 Vectari raiders during routine patrol. 2 enemy vessels destroyed, 1 escaped. No casualties among our crew. Minor shield damage, already repaired. Resuming patrol route." He could imagine the confusion on the other end. The disbelief. A garbage ship with a human crew had just done what entire consortium fleets struggled to accomplish. "Message sent," Amy confirmed. Jake leaned back in his chair. Around him, his crew was grinning, high on adrenaline and victory. Sam was already running diagnostics. Katie was checking the engines. Nate was reloading the railgun, whistling to himself. They had proven something today. Not just to the consortium, but to themselves. "Commander," Lisa's voice came over the intercom. "No injuries to report. Everyone is healthy." "Good work, Doctor." "Jake." It was the first time she had used his name instead of his rank. "What happens now?" Jake looked at the stars on the view screen. Somewhere out there, Captain Reth was spreading the word. The humans were not prey. The driftwood was not garbage. Everything the galaxy thought it knew was wrong. Now, Jake said. Now things get interesting. He was right. Within days, the story had spread across the consortium. The humans and their impossible ship, the garbage vessel that had defeated pirates, the prey that had become predator. And in the halls of power, people were starting to pay attention, some with admiration, some with fear, and some with plans of their own. The news spread faster than light itself. Within a week, every species in the consortium knew about the battle. The story grew with each telling. Some versions claimed the driftwood had destroyed a dozen ships. Others said the humans had some kind of secret weapon. A few even suggested that Earth had been hiding advanced technology all along. The truth was stranger than any rumor. Humans had simply taken garbage and turned it into gold. Ambassador Vorik arrived at the driftwood's docking station with a full inspection team and a face that looked like he had been eating something sour. Jake met him at the airlock, trying not to smile. Ambassador, what an unexpected pleasure. Commander Harris. Vorik's voice was stiff. The Consortium Council has requested a full inspection of your vessel. There are concerns that you may have installed forbidden technology. Forbidden technology? Weapons that violate treaties. Systems that were not approved. Surely you understand the concern. Vorik's forearms gestured at the ship around them. This vessel was worthless. Now you claim it defeated 2 Vectari raiders. The mathematics do not work. Then let us show you the mathematics, Jake said. The inspection took 6 hours. Vorik and his team examined every system, every modification, every piece of equipment. They scanned the hull. They tested the engines. They analyzed the weapon systems. What they found was nothing illegal. The reinforced hull used approved materials, just configured in ways no alien engineer had ever considered. The engine modifications were creative but within specifications. Even Nate's railgun was technically classified as mining equipment, repurposed but not forbidden. This is impossible, one of the Thessan inspectors muttered, staring at readouts. Every modification uses standard components. Nothing here should work this well. And yet it does, Katie said sweetly. Vorik stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by data that proved everything the humans had done was legal. His face had gone from sour to something closer to shock. Commander Harris, he said finally, I must admit, I did not believe this was possible. When we gave you this vessel, we expected failure. I know. We expected you to beg for help, to prove that humans were not ready for the stars. I know that too. Vorik was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. Almost respectful. You have turned garbage into something else. I do not have a word for what this ship is now. It should not exist, and yet here it stands. He looked at Jake directly. Perhaps we underestimated your species. Perhaps you did. This will change things. The Council will need to reconsider humanity's position in the consortium. We look forward to that conversation. Vorik nodded slowly and led his team off the ship. Jake watched them go, feeling something he had not felt in months. Hope, but not everyone in the galaxy was impressed. 3 days after the inspection, Jake received a priority message from Consortium Military Command. He was ordered to report to Station Primus, the central hub of Consortium military operations. No explanation was given. When he arrived, he was escorted to a conference room deep in the station's core. Waiting for him was Admiral Sirath of the Keth Empire. Sirath was ancient, even by alien standards. His species lived for centuries, and the Admiral had spent most of his life building the Consortium's military into the dominant force in the galaxy. He was cold, calculating, and ruthless. He had opposed humanity's admission to the Consortium from the beginning. Commander Harris, Sirath said. His voice was like grinding stones. Please. Sit. Jake sat across from the Admiral, keeping his face neutral. You have caused quite a disturbance, Sirath continued. A refurbished cargo vessel destroying 2 Vectari raiders. It is the talk of the fleet. We were defending ourselves. Indeed. And doing it quite effectively. Sirath leaned forward, his dark eyes studying Jake like a scientist examining a specimen. Tell me, Commander, what do you think would happen if humanity had access to real warships? Real weapons? Real resources? I think we would use them to protect ourselves and our allies. Protect. Sirath made the word sound like a curse. Humans do not protect. Humans conquer. I have studied your history, Commander. Your species cannot go a generation without war. You destroy everything you touch. I have studied your history. You destroy everything you touch. Jake felt anger rising in his chest but kept it contained. With respect, Admiral. The Consortium has fought wars too. Every species has. We fight when necessary. Humans fight because they enjoy it. That is not true. Is it not? Sirath smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. I think your little victory has proven my point. Give humans garbage and they turn it into a weapon. Imagine what they could do with real power. Jake said nothing. I have convinced the Council to give you a new assignment, Sirath continued. One that suits your apparent talents. He touched a control, and a holographic star map appeared between them. Most of it was familiar, but one section was marked in red and labeled with warning symbols. The Dead Zone, Sirath said. A region of space that has been forbidden for 10,000 years. Every ship that enters never returns. Probes lose contact within minutes. Long-range scans show only static. You want us to investigate it. I want you to solve the mystery. The Council has authorized this mission. You will take your remarkable ship into the Dead Zone and determine what has been destroying our vessels for millennia. Jake stared at the red section of the map. It was massive, spanning dozens of light years. Whatever was in there had killed countless ships without ever being identified. This is a suicide mission, he said quietly. This is an important scientific inquiry. Sirath corrected. The Consortium needs to know what lies within the Dead Zone. And who better to discover it than humanity's finest crew? Jake understood now. Sirath could not simply destroy the driftwood without cause. That would create political problems. But if humans volunteered for a dangerous mission and died, well, that was simply tragic bad luck. The threat would be eliminated, and the Admiral's hands would be clean. And if we refuse, you will not refuse. Sirath's smile widened. Because humans do not run from challenges. That is what makes you dangerous. And that is what will destroy you. Jake stood slowly. When do we leave? Tomorrow. The coordinates have already been sent to your ship. Sirath rose as well, towering over the human. Good luck, Commander. You will need it. Jake returned to the driftwood in silence. His crew was waiting in the cargo bay, sensing that something was wrong. What happened? Katie asked. Jake told them everything. The mission. The Dead Zone. Sirath's obvious intentions. When he finished, no one spoke for a long moment. So we are being sent to die, Sam said finally. That is the plan. And what is our plan? Jake looked around at his crew. They had worked so hard, achieved so much. They had turned an impossible situation into a triumph, and now they were being punished for it. We have two options, he said. We can refuse the mission, return to Earth, prove that Sirath is right about humans being cowards who only win when the odds are in their favor. Or, Nate asked, or we go into the Dead Zone. We face whatever killed all those ships, and we come back alive. Jake's voice hardened. We prove that humans do not just win when things are easy. We win when things are impossible. Lisa stepped forward. The odds are terrible, Jake. We do not even know what we are facing. I know. And I will not order anyone to come with me. If you want to leave, I will understand. He waited. The cargo bay was silent. Then Sam laughed. Commander, I did not fix this ship just to let some alien admiral blow it up. I am staying. Me too, Katie said. Someone has to keep those engines running. I have been looking for a chance to test the Guardian system against something new, Amy added. This seems like the perfect opportunity. Nate cracked his knuckles. I still have ammunition left. Would be a shame to waste it. Lisa sighed, but she was smiling. I suppose you will need a doctor. I am in. Jake felt something warm spread through his chest. Pride. Gratitude. Love for these impossible, stubborn humans. Then we leave tomorrow, he said. We go into the dead zone. And we come back. And if we do not come back? Sam asked. Jake looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, Admiral Sirath was celebrating, certain that he had solved his human problem. If we die out there, Jake said quietly, we die proving them wrong about us. If we come back, we prove something else entirely. Either way, the galaxy will remember. He turned back to his crew. Either way, we win. The dead zone was worse than any of them had imagined. The moment the driftwood crossed the boundary, every sensor on the ship went haywire. Static filled the screens. Navigation systems spun uselessly. Communication with the outside galaxy cut off completely. We are blind, Katie reported, her voice tight. I cannot see more than a few thousand kilometers in any direction. Same with communications, Amy added. Whatever is causing this interference is incredibly powerful. Jake stood at the center of the bridge, watching the chaos on the displays. They had been in the dead zone for less than 10 minutes, and already he understood why no ship had ever returned. Sam, can you filter out the interference? Working on it. Sam's fingers flew over his console. There is a pattern here. It is artificial. Someone built this. Someone wanted to make sure no one could see what was inside. The hours that followed were a nightmare of navigation. Without sensors, they had to rely on manual observation, looking through viewports and using handheld equipment. Progress was painfully slow. Then they found the wrecks. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands, floating in a massive graveyard that stretched across the darkness. Consortium vessels. Vectari raiders. Ships from species Jake did not recognize. All of them destroyed, torn apart by weapons that had left them in pieces. 10,000 years of death. Lisa whispered, looking at the ancient hulls drifting past. Every ship that ever came here. They all met the same end. What could do this? Nate asked. As if in answer, something appeared on the edge of their limited sensor range. Something massive. It was a sphere, perhaps 5 kilometers across, made of material that seemed to absorb light. It hung in space like a dark moon. And from its surface, weapons were already tracking the driftwood. That is a wraith sphere, Amy said, her voice barely a whisper. I read about them in ancient history files. They were automated defense platforms built by the precursors, a species that went extinct millions of years ago. Why would anyone build something like this? I do not know. But they built it to last forever, and to kill anything that came close. The first attack came without warning. Beams of energy lanced from the sphere, striking the driftwood with force that made the entire ship scream. Systems overloaded. Lights flickered. In the medical bay, Lisa was thrown against a wall. Shields down to 60%, Sam shouted. That was one volley. One. Katie. Evasive maneuvers. I am trying. Katie's hands moved desperately over the controls. It is tracking us. Every move I make, it predicts. Amy, what about the Guardian system? It is learning. But this weapon is unlike anything in its database. I need time. They did not have time. The second volley hit even harder. Hull breaches appeared on 3 decks. Fire suppression systems activated throughout the ship. Nate tried to return fire, but the railgun round bounced harmlessly off the sphere's surface. Our weapons cannot penetrate, he reported. Whatever that thing is made of, it is harder than anything I have seen. Jake watched the sphere on the display. It was moving now. Slowly, but deliberately, closing the distance. Its weapons were charging for another attack. Everyone listen, he said. We are outgunned and outmatched. This thing has been killing ships for 10,000 years. It knows every tactic, every maneuver, every weapon that has ever been used against it. So what do? Katie asked. We do something it has never seen before. Jake turned to Amy. You said, the Guardian system is learning. How long until it can predict the sphere's attacks? Maybe 5 more volleys, but we will not survive 5 more volleys. Then, we need to buy you time. Jake looked at Sam. Can you reroute all power to shields? Everything we have? I can. But we will lose weapons, life support, everything except basic systems. Do it. We only need to survive long enough for Amy to find a pattern. Sam went to work. Across the ship, systems shut down. Lights dimmed. Temperature began to drop. But the shields strengthened. Layer after layer of protection, wrapping around the battered hull. The third volley came. The ship shook violently, but held. Shields at 40%, Sam reported. Guardian is learning, Amy said. I am starting to see patterns in its targeting. Fourth volley, more damage. A section of the hull collapsed. Lisa reported injuries throughout the ship. Shields at 25%. Almost there, Amy said. Just a little more. Fifth volley. The impact was devastating. Jake was thrown from his chair. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead. Around him, his crew struggled to stay at their stations. Shields at 8%, Sam said. One more hit, and we are dead. I have it, Amy shouted. There is a gap. A 3-second window between targeting cycles where the sphere cannot fire. It is a flaw in its ancient programming. 3 seconds, not enough time to escape. Not enough time to fight back. But maybe enough time for something crazy. Katie, can you get us inside the sphere? Inside? There must be a core, a power source, something keeping it running. Jake, that is insane. Even if we get inside, we cannot damage it. We do not need to damage it. Jake looked at Sam. What happens if we overload our reactor core inside that thing? Sam's eyes went wide. A controlled detonation would release massive amounts of radiation. The sphere would have to filter it out or be destroyed. And if it was not designed to filter that kind of radiation, then its systems would overload. It would shut down. Sam shook his head. But Jake, we would have to stay inside. We would be caught in the blast. Not if we time it perfectly. Amy, can you calculate the exact moment to detonate? I can try. Katie, can you fly us into a 3-second window? Katie looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Commander, I did not rebuild these engines just to fly in straight lines. Let us do something impossible. The sphere was charging for its final attack. Its weapons glowed with terrible energy. In seconds, the driftwood would be destroyed like every ship before it. Go, Jake said. Katie threw the ship forward. The 6 engines roared with everything they had. The driftwood dove toward the sphere, weaving and spinning in ways that seemed to defy physics. The sphere fired. The beams passed through empty space where the ship had been a millisecond earlier. Guardian is predicting perfectly, Amy shouted. 3-second window approaching. The surface of the sphere rushed toward them. Up close, it was terrifying. A wall of dark metal covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. There was a small opening near the center, barely large enough for the driftwood to fit. There, Jake pointed. Take us in. Katie did not hesitate. The ship plunged through the opening into the heart of the ancient weapon. Inside, the sphere was hollow. A massive reactor hung in the center, pulsing with energy that had powered this machine of death for millennia. Around it, systems hummed and processed, endlessly waiting for the next target. We are inside, Katie breathed. It is not targeting us. It cannot see us in here. Sam, prepare the reactor overload. Amy, calculate the detonation timing. Everyone else, get to the escape pods. Jake, no. Lisa grabbed his arm. You cannot stay behind. Someone has to trigger the detonation manually. The remote systems are damaged. Then I will do it. No. This is my responsibility. My crew. My decision. Jake looked at each of them in turn. Get to the pods. That is an order. They did not want to go. He could see it in their faces. But they were soldiers, and he was their commander. One by one, they moved toward the escape pods. Katie squeezed his shoulder as she passed. Sam shook his hand. Nate saluted. Lisa was last. "Come back to us," she said. "I will try." She kissed his cheek and ran. Jake stood alone on the bridge of the driftwood. The ship that everyone said was worthless. The ship that had proven them all wrong. "Just you and me now," he said quietly, placing his hand on the console. Outside, the sphere was reacting. It had detected the intrusion and was trying to respond. Systems were activating throughout its structure. Soon it would find a way to destroy them. "Not today," Jake said. He initiated the reactor overload. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. Energy poured from the driftwood's core, flooding the interior of the sphere with radiation it had never been designed to handle. Ancient systems screamed and failed. The weapon that had killed for 10,000 years finally met something it could not defeat. The escape pods launched just before the blast, riding the shock wave out of the sphere and into open space. Inside one of them, Katie watched through a tiny window as the darkness lit up with fire. The sphere went dark. For the first time in millennia, it was silent. "Jake," Lisa whispered. "No." Then the radio crackled. "This is Commander Harris. Anyone receiving?" Katie grabbed the communicator. "Jake, where are you?" "I made it to an emergency pod, barely. The blast threw me clear." His voice was weak, but alive. "Did it work?" Through the window, they could see the sphere. It was still there, but its lights were dead. Its weapons were silent. It was just a shell now. An empty monument to a forgotten war. "It worked," Katie said, tears running down her face. 3 days later, the driftwood limped back into consortium space. It was barely holding together, trailing smoke and debris. But it was flying. Every station they passed sent messages. Ships changed course just to see them. The impossible had happened. Someone had entered the dead zone and returned. Admiral Cyrath was removed from his position before the driftwood even reached port. Ambassador Vorik personally delivered a formal apology from the Thessan Empire. The Consortium Council offered humanity a fleet of brand new warships, the finest technology they had. Jake stood on the bridge of his battered ship, looking at the offer on the display. Around him, his crew waited. "Commander?" Katie asked. "What do we tell them?" Jake smiled. He reached out and touched the scorched wall of the driftwood. "Tell them we appreciate the offer. But we already have our ship. Jake, this thing is held together with tape and prayers. I know. But she earned her place in history. And so did we." The consortium officially rechristened the vessel that day. The old name, Driftwood, was retired. In its place, they gave her a new title, the Invincible, a ship that had been built as an insult. A crew that had been dismissed as primitive. Together, they had done what no one in the galaxy thought possible. And somewhere in the records of the consortium, a new entry was added to the history files, a warning and a promise. "Never underestimate humans. They do not know how to lose." Jake read the entry and laughed. "They are finally learning," he said. The Invincible flew on, scarred but unbroken, into whatever challenges awaited next. Because that was what humans did. They found a way. They always found a way.